Today's session is all around Factory Master in the cloud. Lee is our resident sort of hosted specialist, so he'll be taking the majority of the webinar. But just a brief introduction from myself as the account manager for the Factory Master base. Lee, if you can go on to the next screen. The reason for this really, especially into Factory Master, is we've found, especially over the last several months with lockdown and everything that's happened with COVID, a lot of people having to access Factory Master remotely, which has had quite an effect on the chain of command, I suppose you would say, and the productivity, and often that's affected companies' ability to normal operations to be within the certain timeframes that they've had to date. So it's protracted the production process quite a lot, and also obviously in terms of internet security, that sort of stuff, accessing it. If you can go to the next slide. So some of the reasons here that we find are sort of feedback we're getting from customers, those that have chosen to already go to hosted with Factory Master, and ones that are looking at it now. You may recognize some of these yourself. Again, working from home, or just remote working in general hasn't been great, depending on broadband speed even. The issues with accessing Factory Master for new versions and fixes and installations, sometimes with internal and external IT companies, can be, again, protracted. So with having Factory Master in the cloud, we can manage that for you. And perform those updates, whatever it may be. So it's taking that responsibility away from you, and obviously we offer full disaster recovery, etc., etc. So there's quite a number of reasons. I'm sure you'll have your own, but I won't take too much more time. I'll pass you over to Lee, who will then start to take you through the presentation. Lee?
Brilliant. Thanks a lot for that, Anthony.
No worries.
So access, we've seen a huge shift pre-COVID in the way in which organisations want to use our software and how it's being deployed. The wide majority of organisations now are wanting to use applications through cloud-based technologies. So Access have invested heavily in a platform where we can provide these services for all of the Access applications, and how we can manage all that for an organisation. So some of the signs that your IT could be at a point of critical failure is outdated servers that need replacing, or updated operating systems, because you're on a version that's no longer supported either by the vendor of the operating system or the actual software that you use is no longer supported on that version of the operating system. The ever increasing cybersecurity threats and the risks associated with that of being attacked. User accessibility issues, so being able to make sure users can access the system all of the time, make sure they get the performance that they need, and make sure it works in the way that they expect. Potentially, a lot of organisations find that their backup process is unreliable because it's not checked and tested. So if they need to start looking at doing invocations of backup and disaster recovery and bringing that data back, issues transpire from there. The organisation itself is restricted in terms of growth due to the lack of scalable capacity. So the actual infrastructure you're running doesn't have that capacity to scale up to support the business's growth and use of the applications, which also then can lead to loss of your competitive edge in your market space because you're running on outdated technology. So just to give you a little bit of an overview of the Access Factory Master application in the cloud and how we manage that. So we'll host the Factory Master application, so that critical business application, in our cloud environment that has been built and designed to enterprise level, using enterprise level technology and support and management around that infrastructure, which is all done by Access. Regards to security, we provide additional layers of security which will isolate your data and your application from any other system which is within your environment, which ensures integrity of the application and your data at all times. As I briefly touched on, the platform itself and the applications are all fully supported, managed and monitored by Access. Nobody knows the Access applications better than ourselves, and we provide the best level of support and management around that infrastructure. All of the migration plan into the cloud, that's all fully managed by Access with minimal amount of downtime to yourselves or disruption in terms of that migration process. And also, even if your software has been highly customized or you've got a lot of bespoke work or integrations, we can manage all of that as part of the integration and part of the migration over to our secured hosted platform without compromising or you having to change any of your setup. All of that will happen straight away. You'll have full access to FactoryMaster anytime from anywhere on any device, as long as you have that internet connection and you've got your device with you. So whether that be MacBook, PC, laptop, Chromebook, as long as you have that internet connection and access to the internet, you're always going to be able to have access to your application. The platform itself is all fully backed up and replicated, and we do full tests of all of our backups that we do to ensure they're verified and make sure they are suitable for use if needed in having to bring data back online. And we retain all of that data for 3 months, which also then covers our disaster recovery as well. So as I say, the platform itself is all replicated. We have 2 tier 3 data centers in the UK, which this platform is split across. So we have our primary data center, and then we have it all replicated over to our secondary site for site-to-site disaster recovery from our perspective. And with that, it reduces time to recovery in the event of a disaster. So whether that be in case of it be a disaster that's affected yourself, so something like COVID, which is preventing you getting into the office to use the systems, or if that was a disaster from our perspective where we was to lose the primary data center, you're covered because we have a secondary site where that would automatically spin up to. But if you can't get into your office, as we mentioned earlier, you'll have full access to your platform from anywhere as long as you have that internet connection. Just to cover off kind of 4 of the basic principles of a resilient and agile IT infrastructure. First of all is performance. So you want to make sure that the infrastructure that you provide to your users and what they're using is going to provide them with the most performant application and ease of use for them whilst managing the system and moving forward. Scalable. So you want to have a platform that is not just suited to where you are as an organization today, but that's going to fit your organizational requirements as you move forward, whether that be going through a growth phase, whether that be, you know, in some events, maybe potentially having to scale back. You want to be able to have that flexibility to flex your infrastructure and your application best to what you need. The application and the infrastructure needs to be practical, so it needs to be correct and efficient for what your requirements are. And finally, accessible. So as Anthony touched on, we've found a lot of organizations have found issues with accessing systems with the whole COVID pandemic and having to work around how to connect into systems from remote places, which is causing a lot of issues for users and making their lives more difficult. So what I'm going to do now is just go into these principles in a little bit more detail around each of those. So with regards to performance, you know, as I mentioned earlier, performance is absolutely critical. And the overnight switch to remote working affected all of us. However, as we have seen with our own cloud infrastructure and our customers that are using that infrastructure, those organizations that had already switched to the cloud saw that their actual business critical applications were largely unaffected by the switch to having to work remotely. That's because the platforms are designed for remote, anywhere, anytime working, and the systems continue to be performant. The infrastructure itself, we're running ultra fast servers and high capacity transit routes, which allow users from an office to home in an instant. So you can switch between where you're working from, absolutely no issue at all. And because the systems are specifically optimized for remote working from the outset, the performance levels are maintained even when the whole household is using that internet connection and you was using Netflix or YouTube or other things that happen when you're working from home. So regards to scalability, as we're all adapting to the new normal, as it's termed, it's important to have a system that can scale with your organization. An adaptable system that can be resized on demand to meet your requirement, whatever that may be. So how that changes, you have that. With this platform, you'll be able to perform online in-place upgrades to components without ever having to physically visit the machine. And with our advanced automation and package deployment, transitioning and adoption is easier than ever before. So we've made that process as streamlined and as simple as possible for all organizations to move these infrastructures and these applications into the platform. And unlike some of the other clouds, what we've done is by investing in our own resources, we're able to scale when some others have struggled. So when we've seen other cloud providers struggling for capacity or other softwares that are using third-party organizations to host their applications and have struggled to meet the demand, we've been able to do that because we're in complete control of the platform, because it's our platform. It's owned, managed, and manned by Access. It's not passed on to a third party at all. With regards to practicality, getting your IT resources into the cloud is just part of your journey. It's the initial part of the journey. Like when you're on premise, you need to make sure that you can only be accessed by those authorized to do so. The expertise of hosting software and not just infrastructure for thousands of customers across the world has allowed us to provide practical advice on what you need to do to keep your data and your organization secure. From your identity to your data, we excel in finding creative solutions to IT challenges to get you up and running across a wide range of technologies with the security built in as standard into that. And finally, perhaps the most important thing is the need for your systems to be accessible no matter what the future might bring. From the practicality of being located in a purposely built data center, which is designed to run 24/7, 365 with minimal user interactions, to our engineering team, classified as designated protected workers. So all of our team are protected workers, so they can continue to monitor and patch all of the infrastructure, and everything is designed to be available remotely and online when and where you need it. And before you ask, yes, we can even turn it off and back on again through remote internet enabled provider bars. So to give you a bit more of the overriding benefits of the Access cloud hosting platform that's been specifically built for our Access applications. So first of all, and it's sacrosanct to every organization, is around security. So the platform, as I mentioned, is highly secure and reliable. So the hosted platform itself is fully enterprise grade, split across 2 of the UK's premium data centers, and is all running on best of breed referenced architecture. So that is all infrastructure that has been specifically designed and we have optimized for running applications in the cloud. We provide you with increased resilience and redundancy. So the Access software hosting solution, as I mentioned, is fully managed and monitored on a 24/7, 365 basis. And that covers both the infrastructure and your application. So all of that will be managed by us on a 24/7 basis. You get improved cost efficiency and predictability. So you're getting a highly available solution with a predictable annual fee for all of the resource to have your application in the cloud. You have that single supplier relationship. So all calls will be handled and managed by us. You call the support team, they know you're in our hosted environment. That is passed to the correct team to make remedies to any issues, whether that be on an infrastructure or an application basis. So what that enables us to do is very much eradicate the common supplier ownership issues. You gain increased support and maintenance. So we're the experts in building, maintaining, supporting, and hosting FactoryMaster. There is no other organization that knows the applications as well as we do, but also can provide the level of management around not only the infrastructure, but the application. You get an increased performance out of the application. So because we proactively monitor this platform, we can ensure that the platform always has sufficient resource to meet demand from our user base. And again, the anywhere, anytime access. You can easily connect to FactoryMaster via the internet from any location on any device at any time. So to give you a bit of an understanding of the migration process, it really is 4 key steps to a migration into the hosted environment. So step 1 is we would create or spin up the server environment that your application is going to reside on. So we would spin up the resources that are going to be specific for your organization and within that environment. Step 2 is we would take a copy of your current data and migrate that into our hosted environment. At that point, we would do some testing on there to make sure that the data was working correctly and that the operation was up and running sufficiently. Once we've done our initial internal testing, we would then pass this over to yourselves to run a full user acceptance testing phase. So that would be a case of being able to have all of your users connect into the hosted environment, use the application, check all of the functionalities correct, check all of the data is correct, and make sure everything works in the same way that it does currently to make sure that you get all of the functionality and work out of the application. If for any reason anything crops up at this stage where things need to be changed, that's not a problem at all because you're in this testing phase. Straight away, any issues are sent straight to the support team, changes are made, fixes are changed, and then you can carry on your testing to ensure that testing is completed completely and fully. And then finally, we would then take a final copy of your data and migrate that over to the hosted platform. And that would then be ready for you and your team to start using FactoryMaster live within that hosted environment. So you'll be using the application in the cloud straight away. This process is fully supported by the support team and your project managers before, during, and after the project. You'll be given a dedicated project manager who will assist with any queries, questions. Predominantly, the heavy part of their work will be during that testing phase to make sure everything's working correctly. And they'll be ensuring your migration runs smoothly. And from an end user's perspective, when they move to the hosted environment, they see the same software. The software doesn't change. It looks, feels, and uses the same. All they do is they simply log on to FactoryMaster via our secured web portal. So with regards to the post-migration support, so Software updates and patches. So we keep your software and licenses up to date as standard within the platform. So by default, the hosted version of the application you'll be running will be the most recent release. We automatically deploy fixes, patches, updates as and when needed, whether that be on an application basis or whether that be on an infrastructure basis. They are automatically done for you. If you have any bespoke elements of your software, that configuration and functionality, we would never upgrade you without having consulted with you first. So to make sure we're not going to have a negative effect on yourselves because a new version of the software has come out, we would always contact you to say, this is what the version is, this is what new functionality is that something you want to upgrade to? If it is, fantastic. We'll put you through a test phase to make sure all of the integrations work before you then go live. As FactoryMaster is hosted in our environment, we automatically get all of the alerts when licenses are due to expire, and we can apply the new licenses to ensure seamless access to your software. Hosting FactoryMaster in the Access Cloud means that you don't need to contact any third-party IT provider with any issues to do with FactoryMaster or your infrastructure supporting that. With regards to backup and disaster recovery, all of the Access software hosted by us includes, as standard, 4 tiers of backup. So we do daily differential backups, we do a weekly backup, we do monthly backups, and then on top of that, we also run a 15-minute transaction log backup of the SQL database. All of those backups are fully tested and verified to make sure that if the worst should happen, we can get that data back for you if there is an issue or an error in that data. We also include disaster recovery within the solution, so you can get your critical business application up and running with minimal disruption to the operation that you have there. So whether that be, as I said before, not being able to get access to the office, or if it was something from our side, we're covering all of those angles from there. And all of the resources that we provide within the hosted environment are completely tailored to you and your needs and your use of the FactoryMaster system. So we don't do what you would term as off-the-shelf sizing. We know exactly what resources are needed for your organization, for your application, the user number you have, the modules you have. So what you get is that predictable, manageable cost for all of your hosting needs around the application. And we don't have this concept of preset blocks of resource. We just provide you with what you need when you need it. One of the key areas of management that we provide on the platform is around your database, and that is extremely key to us, because at the end of the day, your data is the lifeblood of your organization. So we'll manage the disaster recovery of that database layer. So we ensure that all SQL clusters within the environment are all kept in sync and are ready for immediate failover if an issue is detected on the database. We ensure the integrity of the database. This is done by our team of fully qualified database administrators. So we're regularly performing checks and tests on that environment of all of the databases within that platform to make sure nothing is wrong with that. On the security side of things, we ensure that all of the databases are protected from unauthorized access. And the way in which we do that is through a process where we grant permissions to the databases based on a principle of least privilege. Also, we're able to identify and resolve performance issues on that database. So, as I say, we're actively monitoring the platform permanently to identify any performance issues. So we can see where these bottlenecks in the platform, and we can make the changes to speed that up. But also, on top of that, the database administrator team have regular meetings and discussions with the development teams of the software. So if they see issues within the software, they can have that escalated to the top of the list for any issues, so that those changes can be made to the software, meaning you'll get a better performance out of the software, and it'll all be resolved at the earliest possible opportunity. With regards to everything that you see at the moment, security and cybersecurity is paramount, and you'll see it on the news, in the papers, on social media of organisations that are affected by this. And the one key thing that I want to make sure we make you aware of here is, don't think that your business is not at risk of cyber attack because you're not a global brand. Cybersecurity threats impact businesses of all shapes and sizes, whether that be, a two-man organisation through to a multinational, so someone like British Airways, for example, which has recently been in the press with the issues they had. What the cloud hosting provides is enhanced cyber protection, and should the worst happen, your data can be recovered quickly. So because we hold your data outside of your domain, it negates the potential of that data being impacted by cyber threats, creates its own secured, dedicated bubble. But just to have a look at some stats around this that are there in the outlet for people to see. So 43% of breach victims were small businesses. There's a cyber attack every 39 seconds on average. So that's 2,244 times a day hackers are attacking organizations. A couple of stats from 2019, because the latest stats are still coming through. So 94% of malware was delivered by email. So when we host your application, that application and your data, business critical data, is sat outside of your domain. So it has no direct access to any email platform, meaning it is taken away from one of the highest causes of issues around data compromises. And attacks within the supply chain sector have increased 78% in 2019. So how do we provide security in the cloud? So first of all, it's around monitoring and performance. So it's managed and monitored around the clock. It's highly performant components, and our network operations center and support team are all based in the UK and all managed by a UK team. Then you want to investigate and clarify. So we have next generation antivirus within the platform, but also as part of that all sits behind our enterprise grade next generation Palo Alto firewalls, which are permanently scanning and updating and making changes to the security levels and keeping on top of all types of threats. Obviously, the security and event management, and we also provide active network prevention. The platform itself is all hugely accredited, so it's all ISO 27001, ISO 9001, Cyber Essentials certified, all of the policies and procedures in place around GDPR compliance, around our responsibility from data. We're also a government G-Cloud and NHS accredited cloud provider. And as I say, we manage all of the updates and multiple layers of protection as standard within that platform. So we'll apply restrictions on what software is authorized to run in our environment. So that is a very strict list of what applications we will have within our environment, which is typically only access software. will restrict the locations for where applications can be run. As I mentioned, we don't permit any access to email accounts or the internet directly. So when you're using the application in our cloud environment, you're not sat next to an email exchange environment where threats come from, but also you can't connect to the internet directly out of our data center. So again, preventing that intake of backups. And obviously we completely manage and monitor all of your backups. So just in summary, just to go through a couple of the salient points around this is, so migrating your FactoryMaster software to the cloud is fully supported from our hosting experts and also our support experts who will manage your software and infrastructure. End user testing and acceptance prior to go live. So you'll go through a rigorous testing period before you will be live on the platform. You'll have the ability to use FactoryMaster wherever, whenever, on any device with that internet connection. The platform is fully managed, so from a patching and updates perspective, we provide full management of the database, fully supported before, during, and after migration. We have a very transparent pricing matrix for the package, so it specifically fits your individual needs. The scalable resources to meet your business demands, so as you grow and use increases or decreases, we can manage that. And the enhanced security protection using our enterprise level security architecture. And on there, I'll see if there is any questions.
Thanks, Lee. Appreciate that. I'm sure you'll all agree there's quite a lot of content there and some really good information, and possibly the reason that you've all joined the call today is because you've probably got some or quite a lot of those concerns or questions. So I appreciate everyone's time. I'll give you a chance to compile any questions that you all might have in the question and chat section. But Lee, I did have a couple of questions that some of the guys on the call have asked for previously. I think you answered this one, but will the software look any different when it's hosted?
No, not at all. No. So the actual software application itself will look and feel the exact same as it does now. The only thing that is slightly different is that the user will log into the application through our login portal instead of having the application on their desktop.
Okay, that's it. Thank you. Another question here is, what is the connection speed like? So essentially, what bandwidth will we need? I think you touched on it again, but is there a minimum requirement that we suggest?
So we do have a minimum recommendation. So when we built this infrastructure, we made it so that it was going to be as light touch as possible for users. So what we would recommend is a minimum of 0.5 meg download speed per user.
Okay, that's quite okay, and that's pretty low, isn't it? I suppose in terms of what you would need.
It is. It's extremely light touch in terms of bandwidth. So for an example, and I've done this quite a few times when I've been back in the day when I used to be able to go out and see customers. I would potentially run a demo of the hosted environment from my laptop connected to my mobile phone using the 4G connection, and runs very happily on that.
Okay, well, that was the last question actually. So, what is the change in performance when they go hosted to what we're expecting? So, and I guess this isn't just from people dialing in, because we know there are performance issues there, but even on site, standard performance with FactoryMaster, what are you expecting an upgrade in that there?
Yeah, so there is a couple of very key points around performance. So just on that, so from an infrastructure perspective, the infrastructure is best of breed, specifically optimized for running these applications in the cloud at their most performant basis. But also, we've done quite a lot of extensive testing and research with users prior to moving to the hosted environment. So we've had organizations do work through processes on premise and then move them into the hosted environment, got them to test those same processes again, And what they've found has been an increase of performance across the board, typically of up to 30%.
Okay. Fantastic, thank you. So got some questions here. Okay, yeah. So what is a typical cost? Here it says for instance for a 10-user installation. I assume it's probably not that straightforward depending on deployment, but you know, can we give any ideas of cost?
So it is variable because, as we say, the pricing is specifically around the resource required for each individual organisation. So what would be taken into account is the number of users that you have on the platform, the modules you have within your subscription, if you have any handheld devices, and things like that. So yeah, it is very difficult to say, but you know, if you was looking at say a 4-user system of Factory Master, you'd potentially be looking somewhere in the region of kind of £3,000 to £4,000 per annum.
I've got a couple of other questions. Thank you for that. I've got a couple of other questions now. Is this run through a web browser or a dedicated app?
So the user will connect to the platform, so they'll log in through a web browser, but the actual Factory Master application will be deployed to their device as a remote app.
Okay, brilliant. And then one last one that I've got here is, how does the cloud-based software integrate with other systems such as Exchange for the features that need this in Factory Master? So we've been told that Factory Master won't integrate with other cloud-based systems such as Microsoft 365.
So with regards to integrations, so when we host the application, there is multiple ways in which we can support integrations, whether that be with third-party systems, and we can do that through line of sight integrations or web APIs. If you have emails where you email directly out of the system, those emails can be sent straight out of the system via our SMTP system. So it could be done like that, or it does depend. We've got hundreds of customers who we have all sorts of integrations with applications, and we can support integration, not a problem at all.
Brilliant, great stuff. Okay, so I think, yeah, no worries. I think, yeah, so unless there's any other questions, I'll give it a few moments in case anyone else has thought of one, but hopefully that should be quite sufficient, hopefully, in answering a lot of the questions that you've got. If you have got any questions, by all means, I would suggest the first thing to do is perhaps send myself an email. Oh, we've got another question here. Do custom reporting services reports work? So I guess they mean
sorry, repeat that again, sorry.
So do custom reporting services reports work? So is that SSRS, is that? Crystal and the like?
Yeah, so if it's using Crystal reporting, then that module and reporting functionality absolutely works and can be used. If you're using SQL reporting services, again, not a problem at all. We can provide a hosted environment where you'll have full access to SQL reporting services. So from a functionality and reporting perspective, that shouldn't change.
Right. Another couple of questions here as well, Lee, and I think I know the answer to a couple of these, but are all modules available in the cloud version, i.e. MRP module? I can answer that, yes, they are. So any modules that you have within Factory Master currently, as Lee said, we would, I think you used the phrase lift and shift what the current environment is into the cloud environment and test it there. Is that correct, Lee?
It is, yeah.
Brilliant. And how would this integrate with Orchestrate? Again, so I assume that question might be if Orchestrate isn't in the cloud, or can Orchestrate be hosted in the cloud?
So there's two answers to that. One is we could just host Factory Master, and we could still offer integration to Orchestrate with it remaining on premise, if that was a preference. Or we can actually host Orchestrate and Factory Master together within the cloud environment, and which would then again fully support the integration. So we can work on either of those options depending on what is going to be most appropriate for the organization.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Lee. Brilliant. Okay, yeah. So if there's any other questions, I can take them offline and answer them directly. But yeah, if you've got any other questions, you should all have my email address. But if not, we can send that out for those that don't. If you've got any questions, if you want to have a follow-up call with myself and Lee, or just me, that's absolutely fine. We're happy to talk through any of the specific problems you're facing and why you might be obviously looking at hosting. Yeah, and so anything else anyone wants to add, Lee? Is there anything any other questions, or is that it?
Nope, nothing from myself. Just thank you very much for attending.
Yeah.
Look forward to speaking with you soon, and have a good afternoon.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.